Welcome, fight fans, to the third ever podcast of the Hooks In MMA group. We had a banger of a card Saturday night that we're going to be recapping for you guys off the hop of the hour. And then we're going to transition into a legendary interview with Frank Trigg, former UFC fighter, Pride fighter, and he's also in the UFC Hall of Fame. We've got a special edition interview with him. Going to be a bit longer than usual, but that's okay. No card this weekend for Easy Line, so we're going to have a special Canada Day, July 4th, Independence Day episode. Kicking things off to do the recap of the Poirier-Hooker fight is Adam Davidson.
Thanks, Ben. As you said, fight night was an action-packed night in Austin. A few highlights of the night: Julian Erosa's round 3 submission over Sean Woodson, a fight that Erosa took under a week's notice, was able to get the win. Maurice Green's strange submission over Gian Vellante in round 3, a fight that Vellante would have won if he just made it to the end of the third round, but he gassed out. We can talk about that. Mike Perry's much-needed win over Mickey Gall, hilarious post-fight interview regarding the tax man. And last but not least, the 5-round battle between Dustin Poirier and Dan Hooker. Fight of the year, crazy fight. Round 2 was maybe the craziest round I've ever seen. And of course, we got to give a shout out to Tanner Bozer, Hooks In MMA guest, with a vicious round 1 knockout over Felipe Lenz. Boys?
Yeah, no, that main event fight was definitely fight of the year candidate, absolutely. I thought Dustin Poirier's performance was incredible. Don't know if you guys saw the stat line of 76% of his significant strikes landed, which is, highly accurate. That's really the way that he was able to, I think, really pull out the fight. It's just, he was a dog in there. He kept going. His cardio was clearly much higher than Hooker. After that second round, Hooker was putting it on him at the end. That knee cause seemed like almost like a flash knockout where Dustin was, he just kind of fell and grappled him, right, and fell into his body and very smartly pushed him up against the fence to push that second round forward. After that, when that third round started, Dustin became very, very active and started to pull away the fight from there.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to top the whole night as a whole. The first 5 out of the 6 fights on the card were finishes. Just an incredible card from start to finish. Even if you're an average MMA fan and maybe didn't know a few of the names on the undercard, tremendous. That main fight card was everything that it was supposed to live up to. Dan Hooker showed that he, as Justin Gaethje said, belongs at the head table with some of the best lightweights in the world. He put on a great performance. His downfall, I thought, was, I don't want to say his cardio, because he was still in the 5th round and he still threw some punches that it definitely tapered off in terms of output. But I think that second fight in a row, that was a 5-round absolute battle. So he had the one with Paul Felder and they just knocked their socks off. It was so much for Felder after, it made him so emotional that he actually retired. He actually said today, I'm not retired, I'm just waiting for that next fight. So fights like that, a 5-round fight like that, you don't come back right away and you don't come back exactly the same. It's wear and tear. And as you saw on George St. Pierre, his whole career kept adding up. It slows you down. Poirier said, end of 2020, early 2021, he wants to fight next because of a 5-round war like that. It takes a lot of a toll on you. So Hooker belongs. Didn't have the 3rd, 4th, and 5th round, I believe, to get that decision. Poirier's been there many times before, and he's shown he is the second best lightweight in the world, in my opinion. Just doesn't have what it takes to beat Khabib. But Hooker's right there. Just the back-to-back 5-rounders that were absolute wars were a little bit too much for him.
Yeah.
I think
Hooker's chin has to go down in the annals of history as like the Mark Hunt style chin, maybe. Just unreal. Crazy the amount of punishment he took. I don't even think it was his cardio that caused him so much trouble. It's just the amount of punishment that's stacked up by that 5th round. I don't think it's it's fair to compare his cardio to Poirier's cardio. They both had a pretty significant output. Just he wore it a little bit more than Poirier did. Up next, though, I'd like to see Poirier versus Ferguson, I think. If Gaethje can get past Khabib, then Poirier has to get the title shot. If Khabib wins, then that kind of leaves the lightweight division in a weird limbo where we don't really have a number one contender. And I think the Ferguson-Poirier fight would really bring that contender up to the forefront.
That's my fight next, because Poirier comes off of a loss to Khabib, who hasn't lost to him, but then he comes back with a huge win against Hooker. Whereas Ferguson obviously comes off the loss to Gaethje, but then had one of the longest winning streaks in UFC history. Ferguson's still at the top. He had a mishap against Gaethje. He got outplayed. I don't think it's too far-fetched to say if one guy gets a win, one guy gets a loss, if they're still in the top five, that's still a relevant fight, especially if Khabib pulls through. There's Poirier and Ferguson Ferguson hasn't had that fight against Khabib. So maybe that sets it up where Ferguson can beat Poirier, and maybe he gets that match that we've always been waiting for that's been postponed so many times.
Yeah, I'd also like to see Hooker match up with Oliveira next. I think that would be a good matchup. Step back.
Yeah.
Oliveira's on the rise.
I read yesterday too, just sorry to interrupt, but about Oliveira, and he's saying all these other guys like Gaethje and Poirier and Khabib and all these guys, he's like, when is it my turn? So maybe you give him Hooker next and you figure out who's going to be jumping into that top five again. I like that matchup.
Yeah, I like to see Hooker go up against a grappler of some sorts, right? With Oliveira's jiu-jitsu game, I think it'd be pretty interesting. But Hooker is huge for that division, though. He's so tall. Like, I don't know what Oliveira. I don't know exactly how tall he is for that divvy, but I think that'd be a really interesting matchup. Kind of classic grappler against kind of taller striker.
Might be good for the longevity of Hooker's career as well. I don't think he needs a third fight in a row where they just stand and bang for 5 rounds.
Yeah, I wouldn't be giving Hooker a banger the next one.
He's how old? He's about, well, he's 30 years old now, yeah. So he's at the tail end of his career. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting if they can match him up. But
he might need some time off, too, after that one. So Oliveira, I know, wants to get in the cage soon. So maybe you can give him somebody else in the top 10, just, a relevant fight. You could even give him Ferguson potentially. That would be an exciting fight as well.
Yeah. Because I'm noticing there at the end of that fight too, his hands were down. Like Hooker was like, there was one point I think in the 5th round, he was just kind of grinning at him standing there, and he took a shot, and Dustin was throwing. Again, going back to that 76% strike rate. I really kind of saw him kind of fade out there at the end. He wasn't being as defensive as he was earlier in the fight. So I think the match with Oliveira, but there's always this division stacked, probably the most stacked division in all of UFC, I would say, in my opinion. So there's a lot of different matchups that they can kind of do there now.
Yeah, you wonder if Hooker will make some adjustments. Like, you look how Gaethje had that ruthless just stand and bang, and then he fights Tony Ferguson. He looks like a new man. He's more strategic. He's not putting his chin out like he used to. Maybe we'll see Dan Hooker make some adjustments. I know he trains with Adesanya, and that guy doesn't seem to get hit at all. So it'll be interesting to see how Dan Hooker evolves in the future, and especially getting those championship rounds experience.
You should go train with Lyoto Machida.
Yeah, maybe add a little karate stance to him, but definitely Davidson adding the footwork and then a little more head movement, I think, would benefit him long term. But I still think he's got upside. He just fought, Felder's in the top 7 or 8 easily, and he just fought Poirier, who just lost to Khabib. So it's not like he's fighting just middle of the road guys. These are 2 of the best in the world.
And honestly, that Poirier fight came down to the 5th round. It was whoever was winning was winning the fight.
Yeah, they were even.
Yeah.
So a couple adjustments, like you said, and he could be right
he
back
could
to
be in
where
that
he
top
was.
5. But again, going back, that division is just so stacked. Like, it's so hard to be like in the top 3 or 5. Like, Dustin is just he could be. Actually, he's in the top. Is he in the pound for pound? Okay, yeah, they have him at 11 right now for the pound for pound. So
He's legit. He's,
yeah,
The division with the most contenders and the least title defenses.
yeah.
yeah, exactly.
It shows you how good Khabib is too. Like I know Hooker's not a wrestler, but anytime that he took him down, Poirier would just get right back up to his feet. Like he didn't have a chance holding him down. And it didn't seem like you think if you got up that many times in a fight, you'd be exhausted. But Poirier just kept coming.
And I guarantee you that's based on the repetitions before the Khabib fight. He knew exactly what was coming into that fight, and now he's probably so good at it, which he showed on the weekend. Kronz, what was that stat again that Josh was talking about with the least title defenses?
Yeah, so since 2016, it's only been unified 4 times since McGregor won it, which is kind of crazy. 4 times in 4 years. You look at some of these other weight classes, and they'll easily have 2 in a year. Sometimes 3, sometimes 4. So, that definitely tells you something. And I'm looking at the pound for pound rankings. 5 of these guys, lightweights, are in the top 12. So that just tells you how deep and stacked it is. And any of those 5, could be the number 1 contender.
Yeah.
Make a case for it.
Yeah. Maybe talk about the Mike Perry fight. I personally, why do you need a corner anymore? just bring out your girlfriend and let her ice you down between rounds and give you that moral support, emotional support. Who needs 3 guys yelling at you the whole?
Yeah, like sometimes, especially now without the crowd in the background, you hear the corners a lot more, and sometimes like you hear 3 people shouting different things at the same time. Like, think if you were training a dog and you're yelling out 3 different commands at a time, right? Like the dog wouldn't know what to do. It would just be confused, right? You train for 6 weeks before a fight. Why not just show up with 1 person in the corner? At that point, there's not really much that the trainers can do.
You're right. Yeah. Like, keep the emotions out of it, right? Like, keep it tactical, game plan, strategy.
Exactly. And that's what his problem's been in the past, Kronz. He's been so emotional. Yep. And he fights on instinct. He's going to probably always do that, even though he said he wants to move down to Florida and join Yoel Romero's camp. He's talking with a few people from that camp, but he's fought on emotion all his life. And maybe just, he left his other camp because, people are telling him to do certain things he doesn't want to do. He's pissed off. He left them and decided to go with his girlfriend for this fight, and it worked. So,
Well, it worked against Mickey Gall.
Yeah, but he didn't lose, and he still looked okay. And
Mickey Gall's no world beater, that's for sure.
Yeah, he's probably had one of the easiest roads in the UFC, Mickey Gall.
Well, Mickey Gall.
Oh, well, he did have to fight CM Punk though. So
Perry looked one of the most calm and just kind of reserved that he was in terms of his demeanor. And then I noticed in his post-fight conference interview there, he was like pretty articulate, I thought, actually, for him. And he was actually saying some stuff, even the stuff about the tax man. I'm like, this guy's making a lot of sense, actually. It
was hilarious.
But I mean, we were saying it really in a funny way as well. So, but yeah, no, we'll see if he continues to do that, because for his particular personality, it seems to work, right? He keeps himself more relaxed. There's too many things for him to think about when there's too many guys yelling at him, right? So, we'll see if anyone else maybe changes that strategy as well moving forward.
How about him winning the grappling exchanges?
Yeah,
that was the craziest part. Gall did better in the striking, and Perry was the grappling king.
Yeah, Perry, he showed his strength for this division, right?
He's so strong.
He's not, so strong. And he looked like he looked smaller. Like, I mean, he looked like not as tall, certainly. And he was able to almost not dominate, but certainly able to control the grappling exchanges. So that was really interesting as well.
He was also coming off 2 losses too, right? So you think Mike Perry can't lose 3 in a row. He's gonna give her all he's got.
I feel sorry for his girlfriend being that angry of a person. I'm sure he does a bit of damage. I did want to add one thing. Just two tweets today talking about the tax man. So Ben Askren said, Dear fighters, Uncle Sam will take 30 to 50% of your money depending on state taxes and income bracket. No one will tell you this, plan accordingly. And the second one, Eddie Alvarez said, fighters listening to Ben Askren, set up an LLC before getting your first paycheck. This will allow you to write off most expenses, create a solid safety fund, preferably for 6 months. And having $100K in your account doesn't make you rich. Do not fall out, save and invest. So, Perry's talking about owing different countries a lot of money. He spent $100,000 last year paying stuff out. I mean, maybe you have to have a little bit of a plan going into this before you just, you spend money.
Or hire an accountant.
That would be the better thing.
Look at all these other sports, right? They're trying to train rookies now in some of these leagues, or at least give them like counseling on financial management, because especially UFC, like, sure, there should be some university educated guys, but I'd say majority probably aren't. They're not, you don't pick that up on the street, right? How to manage your taxes and your long-term wealth. So yeah, maybe the UFC should step in and provide some guidance here, as some of these other leagues have. That'd be the responsible thing for them to do. These guys, they're your lifeblood. They're the ones generating your revenue, UFC. Like, help them out. Throw them a bone.
Not according to Dana White. It's not a career. That's what he's
it's a hobby.
Yeah, based on most of their pay, probably not.
Even though he said probably 100 times that you're choosing this career or whatever in any interview that he's doing, then comes about pay and he's like, this isn't a career. This could be crazy.
Yeah, exactly. Like, if it's not a career, why are you signing them to 8 fight deals that they can't get out of? That sounds like a career to me. So what are you guys doing here? Like, you can't,
especially when you might fight like only once or twice a year, right? Like 8 fights is a lot.
Yeah,
and then two guys like that, two guys that have been in the sport a long time that everybody knows, giving that kind of advice based on what Perry says on the weekend, that to me is like, if there was a union, these would be a couple guys part of the union and organizing things and explaining things to fighters, like telling them what they should be fighting for, how they should be organizing things. So they still don't have it. They probably never will. But those are two guys that, have been in the sport and they understand it. They understand the money aspects. And unfortunately, it's a little late for Perry. Maybe you can get it turned around. But some other guys that are just starting out in the UFC, I would listen to that advice.
Could you imagine the Diaz brothers showing up to a session on how to manage your wealth? That'd be the most hilarious thing to see.
I would pay to see that. Like, a lot of money I'd pay.
Well, on that note, I think we're out of time for today. For our Canadian viewers, enjoy the Canada Day on Wednesday and have a safe holiday. And we'll now move on to the interview with Frank Trigg.
Next on the MMA podcast, Hooks in MMA, we have MMA legend, Frank Trigg. How are we doing today, Frank?
It's a good day. It's a good day down here in Southern California. Where I'm living, it's about 75 degrees. The valley's at 100, so I'm not in the valleys, which makes it really nice. And a little cloud covered. It's been a really good day today, actually. Today's one of those days where you get out and you realize why you live in Southern California. I'm sure it's like that in your home, whatever town you live in, anywhere that you get those days, you're like, oh yeah, that's why I live here. I remember now why I live in a certain place.
Exactly. Yeah. We're just in Southern Ontario here, about an hour from Toronto. So the weather's been pretty good. It's rained the last couple of days, but we're starting to get up in the 30s for Celsius. So it's awesome. First question for you. Growing up in, I believe it's Kendall, New York.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just wondering what it was like growing up in New York.
Well, so for those who don't know, it's Western New York. So it's basically Buffalo, Rochester area. To make it easy, I spent more time in Toronto than I did in New York City. Like, I'm on the complete other side of the state. New York City's an 8-hour drive and Toronto's a 2.5-hour drive. So it's quicker for me to get over the border, go to Niagara Falls. And so I spent a lot of time up in Canada, sailing and fishing and swimming and stuff growing up. Kendall's just a suburb of Rochester. It's just a small town, Holly, Kendall, Pavilion. They're all, kind of all in the same little area. Smaller schools. I mean, it was farm community, so we had a lot of summertime. Everyone picked vegetables and picked berries, for extra money, because you could be, you'd be 14 and be working on a farm. We worked with migrant workers all the time because they come in for the farming season and then move along the country as the farming season's changed and what have you. So we made a lot of friends, played a lot of soccer with a lot of the kids that came through, and it was just normal. For me, it was no upbringing. I mean, not much really to say about it. It was just, I got picked on, and I picked on people, and I got bullied, and I bullied people, and kid growing up, stupid stuff, and drank water out of a garden hose, and sat in those big green boxes that never freeze in the winter, and we rode bikes without helmets on. That's what we did.
Just the way you put it there, I'm thinking back. I'm like, I probably did a lot of the same thing. So, I actually went to school for teachers college. I went to Canisius College just over the border there. So I went there for a year and a half and finished my teaching in New York State, and then converted that over into Ontario here. And I've been teaching at the high school level for 7 years. So a little bit familiar with the area. But
it's all the same really up there. Once you get to Western New York, it's all farm town. It's all really corn and cabbage and it's just kind of what gets grown, a little bit of barley some now and again. And I mean, it's just, it is what it is. It's just it's just what it is in upstate, or in Western New York.
Yeah. Just curious, what age you started training? What got you into it? Was there one discipline that you came across and it kind of developed from there? Or?
Well, I started out with Kung Fu when I was 6, just because of everybody does martial arts at some point. And everyone starts with something, whether it's Taekwondo or karate or Kung Fu or whatever. Like just, for me, it was just, that was the thing I was in when I was 6. I was a competitive swimmer during that time frame until I was about 11. And then we moved from the city of Rochester into Kendall, which is, about an hour outside the town, outside the city limits. But it's like very rural. So there wasn't any swimming pools. The closest swimming pool was 45 minutes away. So I couldn't swim anymore competitively. So I had to kind of figure out my next step and played a little bit of soccer. Didn't really like it that much. I wasn't as good. I wasn't that good at it. It's a team sport. It's a little bit more difficult when you have to rely and understand what your other teammates are doing. So like if you want to make a pass for the ball, you got to know that your teammate's going to be there or where he's going to be and understand their speed and stuff. And I had a really hard time with that. So I didn't fare very well. And I started wrestling about the same time I started soccer. I was about 12 years old. And then just ended up being better at wrestling. And that's kind of where my passion fell. And that's kind of what I hung on to. Basically I wrestled until, from, what was that? From 84 until 2001, essentially. I wrestled. So it was, it was a pretty long career, but I wasn't number one, never made the worlds, never made the Olympic team, but that was kind of my starting point. Then when I got in MMA, then I had to start learning Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and Muay Thai and boxing and kickboxing and everything else that goes along with it.
So wrestling was your base then?
Yeah.
Who would you say is a couple of your best training partners that you had? Somebody that, was motivating you, somebody that, gave you good sessions, good sparring sessions, competitive, get you going, get the juices flowing?
The two best training partners that I had were Randy Couture and Vladimir Minishenko. Vladimir was my main training partner for the early part of my career, from like 2000 until 2004, 2005. And then I made the move to Vegas. And then Couture became my main training partner in about 2006. And that was that way until I stopped taking fights. I'm not even sure when that was. So probably, let's see now, it's 20, probably 10, 11 before I stopped taking fights. So.
Okay. So nickname, Twinkle Toes. How come?
I paint my toenails. I mean, it's the most easiest thing to freaking put it together. Like it isn't that big. I mean, it's like, it was given to me by a fan in Japan. She was like, I like the bald guy with tattoos, which was basically every American that was on the card. And then she was like, oh, the one with the twinkly toes. And she said to my manager, and it just kind of stuck. He just ran with it, and it became a thing. I hate the nickname. I've been trying to get rid of it since the day they gave it to me. But somehow it keeps always popping back up again.
I'm sorry I popped it back up for you.
No. It's just like I said, it's what happens. Every time I do an interview, somebody wants to know.
Yeah, I looked up your name just to check out a few other things, and I saw that. I'm like, is that for real? But
yeah, it's a dumb nickname, but it is what it is.
A gentleman that I kind of grew up with around here is a local MMA legend. He said in a podcast last week, you should never make up your own nickname. It should be given to you. So there you go.
Anybody makes up their own nickname's an idiot.
Yeah.
Like, you don't make up your own nickname. It comes from your teammates. It comes from your best friend. It comes from your parents. Like, you coming in and coming up with your own nickname is and I make fun of all those guys that came up with their own nicknames. Like, dude, you gotta, at least your girlfriend's got to give it to you or something. Like,
Something, yeah.
You know, don't be one that you picked it out of a book. That's just crazy.
Yeah, exactly. Who was the toughest fight you ever had? Who gave you the toughest go?
On a loss, it obviously is Hughes because I was so close to winning that fight. On a win, it was Trudeau, Verissimo. So it just depends on how you want to look at it. The one I gave me the toughest go, but I won was Trudeau. The one that I lost was Matt, but that's also the only two fights anybody really wants to talk about. No one really talks about any the first Hallman fight, the second Hallman fight. No one talks about Sakurai or Ali Alilias or Joey Gilbert. Like no one mentions any of the guys in my early career because they were so early that no one really paid attention to them. And those fights are kind of on the UFC radar. They're on Fight Pass. You can pick them up on the old footage. So those are the fights that people are familiar with, and so those are the fights that people kind of always bring up. Every fight, I mean, I don't care what any competitor tells you. If you're competing at a high level, whatever the sport is, doesn't matter if it's race car driving, if it's bull riding, if it's lacrosse or swimming, it doesn't matter. If you're competing at a high enough level, every single meet, every single match, every single thing is tough. They're all tough because there's always an unknown factor. You may watch tape and watch film and have better numbers than this person on paper, but then when the cage door gets closed, it's a whole new thing. Chaos happens. You can slip on a banana peel and blow your knee out. We watched Patrick Cote and Anderson Silva when they fought. Patrick in between rounds gets up and gets ready to start the next round. The bell goes off, or the round starts. He goes to step in and steps funny and blows his knee out. Anything can happen in these fights. It's a physical fight, and that's what makes the fighting game so interesting because we've seen it the last couple of weekends. We saw
Josh Emmett and Burgos last
Burns.
week.
Yeah, Burns beat up Woodley. Like I knew Burns was good. I trained with Burns. He was not a Black Zillions. Like I've worked out with him before. I knew he was good, but I also know how good Woodley is. And I was like, this fight's gonna be close, but Woodley's gonna win. And then for him to dominate Woodley that way, I'm like, dude, like he's turned the corner. Like he's the new guy. Like this is the guy. But it's on paper he should have lost. So that's why you have these fights. Like every fight is gonna be tough. Yeah. Every fight's gonna be tough. It doesn't matter what's going on, who it is, and mentally you can go, this is my toughest fight, or this is my easiest fight. But the reality of it is, at the end of the day, if you really break it down, every fight is tough. Every fight sucks. Every fight has a problem. Even when you win easily, it's still like, oh, well, I slipped on some water backstage walking in, and the train cam was a little weird, and and like whatever. There's always something going on because there's so much chaos that happens within the fight industry, especially during train camps. You get little nicks and bruises and bumps and tweaked fingers and messed up noses and all sorts of crap, and it's just how it goes.
Just to add to your point, last weekend we were watching Shane Burgos and Josh Emmett, and 15 seconds in, after they close the cage door and they announce their names and they come out, 15 seconds in, he tears an ACL, he sprains an MCL, he does something to his femur and all this stuff, and then he goes 3 rounds and ends up winning the fight. So like chaos, right? Just like you said.
Yeah. And sometimes you got to dig deep. And there's stories like that. Like I don't want to take anything away from Emmett, but he's an amazing athlete. But that's not an uncommon story. That story is a common story. That happens for everybody all the time. And the problem is that people that are fans of the sport but have never trained in any aspect of the sport don't understand it. Like not just being sore, but having something broken. Like he broke his ACL. It was gone. His ACL was cut in half. It's gone, and he still goes and fights and goes on and fights with it. And that tells you how tough he is. But it also tells you how tough a lot of these fighters are. These guys will come in there. I mean, I've seen fighters going with herniated discs, numbness running down their hands, no cartilage left in their knees and need full knee replacements and they're 35, like, stuff like that. You're just like, it's a grueling sport, and every guy is tough and every guy has a tough fight. Everybody's, if you're willing to step inside that cage, especially at the highest level, one of the bigger promotions, you're a badass no matter what happens. You go out there and get completely starched in 10 seconds and be on the wrong end of the fastest knockout in the promotion's history, and you're still a pretty bad MFer. Like, let's be honest, because you got inside that cage. It was just you and the guy across from you. It was just the two of us, and we're just gonna figure this out. That's it. That's some scary stuff. When you go, I got 10 other guys on my side of the ball. There's 11 guys over there. If I mess up, somebody will cover up my hole. Somebody pick up the slack. It won't be that big of a deal. When you're out there getting punched in the face, it's you getting punched in the face. That's it.
That's a great way to put it. And you don't know unless you've been in there. So that's a great way to put it. Maybe it's one of the names you mentioned before. What's the win you're most proud of?
The win. That's a tough one, man. Like, I don't really get, and this is going to blow a lot of people's minds, but I don't really get hung up on the wins. I get hung up on the process. So a lot of the wins that people are like, wow, that was a great win. I was like, no, it wasn't a great win. The game plan didn't work that we came up with. I had to switch game plans. My 1, 2, 3 was supposed to work and it didn't work. I just wasn't firing it correctly. It should have worked if I had done it correctly, but I didn't do it correctly. So that's another notch. So, you even though there's always gonna be something good in every fight, and there's always gonna be something bad in every fight. And me, for the wins, I learned more about what I did wrong than really what propelled me to the win, because to me, the wins were gonna come regardless. And it was just like, gotta improve on it to be 100%. So it's tough to say which one I'm most proud of as far as a fight goes. I mean, because every guy was tough, and to say that I was more proud of beating one guy versus beating another guy, so disrespectful for my opponents. I mean, I had a lot of really good opponents, so it's tough to say which one I'm the most proud of. All I can tell you about is which ones they talk about the most.
Yeah, which you did. If I could push back a little bit, the ones that maybe that it didn't go to plan, still finding a way to, going off that road and finding a way to get that win, I think is still pretty impressive too, right?
Yeah, depending on what happens and how things go. A lot of it's just making little micro adjustments. Okay, the jab's not working as well. Let's double up the jab, see if that works. Okay, I'm not in range. The reason why it's working, so let me adjust my foot. Let me adjust my foot pattern and get myself in range. Or I'm too close. I'm jamming myself up, which happens with boxing a lot. Guys get too aggressive, especially in MMA, because there's grappling. So everybody wants to be inside, and then when it's inside, you're no longer throwing straight punches. You're now throwing uppercuts and hooks because he's inside, and so it changes up your game. And that may not be the game plan. Your game plan might be, you're 6'7" with 80-inch reach. You want to keep the guy as far away from you as possible, but he's doing too good of a job of getting inside. You got to switch. Like I got to make an adjustment, and yeah, it's tough, but you got to trust your corners. You got to trust your coach that he taught you well, and everyone's on the same page. And you got to trust that they're going to see some stuff that you're not going to see because you're deeply focused on the box right in front of you. And they're outside the cage looking at the whole picture, so they can see things that aren't necessarily that you don't actually recognize, but they can see it. And so they give you the advice. You got to look, they see something I don't see. Let me just throw it and see what happens. They said throw a 1-2 power kick. I'm gonna throw a 1-2 power kick and see what happens. Oh, that worked. Okay, let's go to that. But we can't go to the well too much. I can't do it over and over again because I'm gonna get caught. So now I have a sequence of things I know is gonna work, and I'll be switch off and find something else is going to work and keep reversing the patterns and changing around and doing these different things. And it's hard. And sometimes you get, it takes a lot to adapt like that. But it's so natural for a wrestler. Wrestlers have to do it all the time. Today, my high crotch isn't working, so it's my head outside single. Okay, that's not working. I'm going to switch off to my double. And then he's just like, okay, no, he's not accepting that either. Let me snap him down. Crap, none of that's working. All right, make him shoot on me and beat him defensively. And then he shoots on you, you take his back anyway. And, so that's a wrestling mentality. That happens all the time in wrestling, especially when you see these kids, like, they think all they have is a high crotch. They're shooting a high crotch. You're like, hey, little Joey, it's not working. Switch off to your double. The kid goes out there and throws 3 doubles and drops in each time 5 points. Bang, bang, bang. You're like, see, it's just you got to pay attention. You got to learn. You got to listen. And so, like, that's a wrestling mentality. We're making those little adjustments. Or I'm never going to say it's easy, but it's something that's we kind of do all the time. And then, I've seen some boxers do it at the highest level of boxing. But not really MMA guys. Like MMA guys will adjust their grappling or they'll adjust their wrestling, but they don't really adjust their striking as much as a whole. Now there are a few obviously that do that, but yeah, it's a great skill, and there is a lot. Even when you lose, you walk away and go, you know what? I made a good adjustment the second round, and I was getting beat first round, and I came back and I won the second round decisively. Yeah, it's only 10-9, but it was a clear 10-9. It wasn't a wishy-washy 10-9. I clearly won the second round, and I ran out of steam and things didn't work out right. He made a great adjustment to beat me coming to the third round. He wins 1-3. I lose the fight, but I did pretty good in the second. And you take that away from me. Like, hey, look, I figured that out. But then you also figure out, okay, in the third, how did he beat me in the third? Because I had the momentum. What happened? Let me fix that. And so you always take the good with the bad and try to figure stuff out.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. If I could branch off really quickly, just to the one thing you said there, trusting your coaches in the corner, they can see a little bit more than what you can see. Just from last weekend, Roscoff coming back after the second round, taking a seat, and he got beat up in the second round. There's a lot of stories that came out after with Drysdale, trying to pushing him within that minute. He only got a minute in between rounds just to mentally focus. He was talking about, it took him a few seconds. He was in shock that he was saying, just call the fight. I guess just a quick point on how you feel about how that went about.
Well, I feel bad for Robert because he was coming from, we kind of got an argument on Instagram after the fact, and I was just trying to make a point of fact. I wasn't trying to say any one way or the other. I wasn't saying anything about the referee, wasn't saying anything about the inspector, wasn't saying anything about the judges, wasn't talking about Robert, was just making a point of fact that if an inspector, or excuse me, if an official, the inspector, the judge, or the referee, here's a fighter say he wants out of the fight is over. That's just the end of it. There is no, oh, well, maybe he didn't mean it, like whatever. Like as soon as you hear that, it's the same thing as saying, hey, your eyes are bad, how you doing? If the fighter says, hey, I can't see, fight's over. You told me you can't see, the fight is over. Don't say those words to me. It's just what it is. But Robert was coming from a place of love and understanding. This is his roommate. So not only does he train with this guy, not only does he coach this guy, he makes food with this guy. Like this is a guy that he knows very intimately, and he was doing his job from a level of love and concern and being a great coach trying to push this guy in. The problem is we have it on camera because everyone can hear it. There's no crowd noise. So we can hear it 9 times. 9 times Mark says he wants out of the fight. 9 times. And it doesn't get recognized until he stands up and the inspector finally hears, what did you say? He goes, I want out of the fight. He goes, you should want out of the fight. And he goes, yeah, I want out of the fight. And that's it. The inspector turned and told, I think it was Mark Smith was the referee, and told Mark, hey, fight's over. He wants out of the fight. And that's it. So they will say, hey, yeah, Robert wanted to call it, come at the end of that minute. It's not what happened. He wasn't able to call it because the inspector heard the fighter say it. So the fighter calls it. And that's the unfortunate balance, is that I want out, call it. I want out. I can't do it. I'm not going to be able to do it. It's not going to happen. Nothing is going to work for me. I want out, call the fight. And he's still trying to hype him up. And then when they're like, hey, the whistle blows, he should have called it right then. Robert should have called it right then, but the fighter did it. So the right guy wins the fight. The right guy that wanted out gets out of the fight. He takes less damage. His career will keep going. He's a very, very good competitor. Mark is an extremely good competitor. 5 days notice. Give the guy a break. What happened? He lost. Forgive me, because I jumped in the middle of the fight. He lost the first round.
I think he won the first. He won the
first
second.
round 10-9 and loses the second 10-8.
10-8, yes.
And knows he's out of gas. So the best he can do is take this guy down, get on top and wrestle him, and win a 10-9 round and get a draw for the fight. So now you have to think of it as a corner. I say it's a corner quite a bit. You have to think mathematically. Has your fighter shown you at any point in time that you can finish this fight? Well, yeah, he did. In the second round, he showed me he can finish the fight. Has this fighter shown you at any point in this fight he has the ability to maintain this pace? Yes, I've seen it before in practice. I've seen him be able to do these things. He's able to maintain this pace. He has shown me he can finish this fight, so he's still in this fight. So then you make the thought process of, okay, he won the first round. He loses badly in the second round, but does he have any energy? And you look at it, you're like, no, his energy's gone. And he got beat. It was a significant 10-8. It was not a 10-9, maybe 10-8. Let's try to figure this out. Okay, it falls on 10-8. This was a wide-standing, must-have 10-8. So now you're looking at, he's lost all his mojo. The momentum is against him. The best he can hope for now is a tie, because all he gave us in the first round was a 10-9. He didn't show us he could finish anything. So what do we do at this point? Now, mathematically, Robert comes in, has to go, hey, if you got to finish this fight. Now you got to finish this fight. Win the round, absolutely. That gives us a draw. We want to win. I need you to finish this fight. Do enough to win the round, but you got to finish the fight. If he looks at me and goes, I can't do it. A little more pep talk. This is what we need. Can't do it. Call it. Okay, we got to call it then. We're done. And it's just stop. The problem is a lot of coaches, it messes with their own money, and it messes with the fighter's money. You call that fight, most contracts, and not all contracts, but most contracts are set up. You show up and get paid to make weight. And then if you win your fight, you get another set of money, whatever that money is. It might be 100,000, 100,000, might be 15, might be 15, might be 50, 50. Like who the hell knows whatever. The contract's over the place.
Yeah, you're
traditionally
showing
how
your
they
win
work.
bonus, right?
You show and you win. Basically for show, you got to make weight. That's what you're showing up for. You get paid to make weight. Then after that, if you step inside that cage and you fight and you win, you get more. If you don't, that's less. So that's less that goes to your corners. That's less that goes to your manager. That's less that goes to you. That's less that goes to your coaches. So you're messing with guys' money if you call these fights. But then you got to look at it. Do I want to make $10,000 tonight, or do I want to make $1 million off this guy over the next 10 years? Let me call this fight right now so we have 10 more years left. If I don't call this fight, it takes another beating. So think about it. Mark could have taken another beating like he did in the second round, in the third round. So he loses again by 10-8. That's another beating by 10-8. He's not going to quit. He's not going to quit. He's not going to go away. You're not going to submit him. So you have to beat this guy. Like you have to beat him up. He's one of those fighters you have to beat up the finish, right? Mm-hmm. He's going to have to take a lot of damage to get to that point. Is it worth it? Is it really worth it? So coaches and trainers and corners have to be thinking about this when they're going between these rounds. Like mathematically, how are we? Yeah, we're out of it, but we saw some shots that we can win. Right? Yeah, we're down 2 rounds to nothing. We got to finish the fight, but we've seen it. We got some shots. And this guy wants to continue to fight. If he's asking me to call the fight, you got to start thinking about all these other things. What's left? What's he got left? What's he showing me? What's going to happen? What's going to go on? Like, okay, now we got to go.
That's within that 1 minute too, right?
Yeah.
Like only 1 minute, you got to think about all that.
Let's understand it's not 1 minute. It's 50 seconds.
Okay.
Because at 10 seconds left, the whistle goes off and you got to get out.
Okay.
So it takes 3 or 4 seconds, 5 seconds sometimes to get the guy into a seat once the doors open at the end of the round. So now you're down to 55 seconds, right? Because you already lost 5 seconds. Then with 10 seconds left, you're kicked out. So you can't. So you really give yourself like 45 seconds, 40 seconds to talk to these guys. That's really what it ends up being. And you got to get him calm down. You got to get his heart rate under control. You got to give him a little quick piece of advice. You got to tell him what he's doing good, tell him what to improve, and then you got to get him back out there. You know, in that 40, 45 seconds. It's not a lot of time to get stuff done. It's really not.
No, that's a whirlwind. That's a short amount of time for a big decision like that. But yeah, longevity for the career, I think good decision, right? No third round.
Absolutely. No, 100%. And Robert's going to take a lot of damage. He can take a lot of heat for the next couple of months. And it is what it is. That's just because there's nothing else to talk about until this Saturday. Then some other controversy happens in some other corner. Then we're going to forget about Rob and move on to the next one. Like, that's just how we work as humans. We move on to the next news cycle. Like, once the cycle happens, we move on to the next one. The next one, comes Saturday night. It's going to be the next series of stuff.
Exactly. So just talk a little bit about fighter pay. And do you think there should be a union for fighters? And if so, why?
I mean, there should be a union, but the union is never going to happen, right? There should be a union, but it's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. For the union to have any kind of teeth, to have any kind of background, you have to take guys like McGregor, the Diaz brothers, Woodley, all the top 3% of all fighters, the guys that make all the money, the John Joneses, well, not John anymore because he's a knucklehead, but
yeah,
all those guys have to agree to, we're not fighting until there's a union. Because for every guy that's like mid-level or beginning of the fight card on the big promotions, for every guy that wants to pull out, there's 10 guys that want his space for less money. Just a shot to say, I compete in Bellator, I compete in the UFC, I compete in these things, and this is what they want to say, and they don't care about the money. They just want to have the prestige of being in there, and so like it doesn't matter about the money. So you can get guys. You want to pull out and hold off to the union, then I have 10 guys to replace you, so you don't matter. So union can't ever get any teeth because there's just too many guys the top end guys are making way more money than everybody else. So it doesn't make any sense for them to pull out and go to a union. It just doesn't make any sense at this point. And so yeah, there's a need for a union, but it's just not gonna happen. It's just not gonna happen. I don't think, and we're so far away and they've been trying for so long. I mean, I'm not gonna be surprised if it happens. They come across and go, hey, by the way, we got a union together. I mean, it doesn't, but it really the effect is, but then understand if they put a fighters union, then all of a sudden the referees and the judges and the inspectors go on a union too. And that becomes because just like the NFL, all of a sudden went, they have the players union, but they also have the referees union. But of course, they're not controlled by any commission. We're controlled by a commission. So the commission is going to go, we don't do unions. If you want to work for us, you got to work for us. And this is what we're paying. You're like, well, that's kind of robbery because when Conor McGregor fights, he makes $6 million.
Yeah.
Right. It's a title fight. It's on pay-per-view. Like he makes a lot of money. I'm going to make $2,000. Well, how does that $6 million to $2,000? Like that doesn't make any sense. So, but you look at boxing, boxing called it. You know, you look at
like Canelo or Mayweather.
No, I'm talking about one specific fight. It was a 12-rounder, Wilder and Fury. When
Fury,
Wilder and Fury one went off, Jack Reese, that referee made $25,000 for that one fight. That one fight, he worked all 12 rounds, made 25 grand.
Wow.
Those guys also made $100 million. You know, you're like, okay, well, let's figure this out. Like, what's the percentage? Like, these numbers have to come up for everybody involved, but it's also difficult because you have to pay the commissions more. You got to pay the fighters more. It's like, you know, we're still a sport that's in growth. Underneath these rules, for the most part, boxing's been around for over 100 years, based underneath these rules. NFL has been around for over 100 years, okay? Basketball's been around for 85 years. Baseball's been around for well over 100 years. We've been around since 94, right? We're still learning. We're still developing. We're still changing. Like, there's a long way for us to grow as a sport. We have a long way to go before we find any subsequence. We're at the end of this growth spurt. Like, we're a long way away from it. But it's also, with that growth spurt, means there's going to be some more changes. There'll be more rule changes. There'll be more things that you like and don't like. I mean, little simple things like the John Jones rule, your fingers can't be out anymore. They have to be up or make a fist. That's the only thing we accept. If you do anything else, I'm taking a point. And then we tell them back in the locker room. And
he's bad for that, eh?
Oh, that's why we have the rule. It's specifically because of him. Like, he will keep his fingers out there and people run into his hands all the time. And you can't get his hand out of the way because he's got his fingers in your face. Like, well, I can't even run into it because I'm going to blind myself. Like, this is stupid. Now it's like, hey, so you're in control. Retreating or being offensive doesn't matter. You have to be in control of your hands. If your hands go straight out and you're running away and he runs into his hands, that's your fault. Okay? You want to take a point away from you. Right? Yeah, but he ran into my hands because your fingers are straight out. You got to be up, make a fist, period. Super easy, super simple. Let's not be silly.
The John Jones rule.
And you have to have rules like that. You have to. I mean, and it adapts because as we see different things, we change different rules. Like, things get adjusted sometimes on the week. Like California, we have a commission meeting pretty much every Thursday. Fights on Saturday. We have a commission meeting on Thursday. We discuss the fights that happened before. What happened? What went wrong? What went right? What should we do better? What can we do better? How would you handle that same situation as a referee? How would you handle that same situation as an inspector? We have these conversations. We have to figure it out because it's ever morphing. NFL, unless there's a rule change, the games are the games. How good is the referee at seeing this particular things, seeing the particular calls for his position? Can he do it? Does he have the athletic ability to run up and down the 100-yard field all the time and do it for 60 minutes? You know, Same thing with basketball. Do these guys have the ability? Once you get to that certain level, they can do it all the time. The rules don't really change that much. With MMA, our rules slightly change and how we approach stuff slightly changes week by week. So we always have to learn and adapt.
Oh, thank you for that. I got to ask you, I hate to throw my buddies under the bus. There's 5 guys total with our Hooks In MMA group. I got to ask about the elevator incident with Bruce Buffer.
I mean, there's not really much to say. I mean, have you been in an elevator with 5 guys?
Yeah.
How much space is there?
There's none.
Okay, well, let's leave it at that.
Okay, fair enough. So I also have to ask you about Menage a Trois in April. What happened? I was reading with the wife.
My Instagram post.
Yeah, the wife said.
And so we swip. So we've been like this before COVID came around. We all got locked down. So March 12th was my last day of work. I was working on a SEAL team. I was up in Big Bear in California shooting this week-long scene. I come down. It's also my anniversary. So I come down. We sequester ourselves. We're locked up basically because I've been gone for a week. So we're staying locked up. It's our anniversary. So we stayed locked up for like a week, whatever. And then everything shut down anyway. So then all of a sudden, we've already been in for a week and everything got shut down. We were kind of settled into cooking food every night and doing those things. Well, we switched nights and who cooks dinner, right? And so it was her night to cook dinner. And she went to the store, comes back, makes her stuff, gets on her phone, sends a little couple text messages, whatever, blah, blah. And she goes, hey, do you want to have a menage a trois? I was like, and now mind you, we're in COVID lockdown. So now I'm going through my head, like, who have we been sequestered with that's going to come over here? Like, well, I don't understand what's happening. And then she was like, oh no, it'd be great, whatever. I'm like, yeah, I mean, sure, if you're down, I'm down, like, whatever. And I kind of blow it off. I go back because I'm thinking like, there's no one coming over here right now, just because it's not going to happen. And so I'm playing Call of Duty. I got one more little thing on. I'm trying to finish up to upgrade one of my weapons. I get off. I turn around. And she goes, here, take your menage a trois. I was like, what? There's a glass of wine. It was menage a trois wine. So I was like, Oh, I just blew you off because I was like, who the hell's going to come over here? She's like, no one's coming over to the house right now. We're on lockdown. She was like, this, have the wine. So the Menage a Trois was the Menage a Trois wine.
I didn't think the name was Josh or something. You're like, a guy, what? Like,
Yeah. I was like, oh, yeah, sure. She's going to, because Josh is her other drink. She has Josh. She has Josh, Jason, and there's one other one she drinks. So she's like, I'm going to cheat on you. I'm going to have a little Jason. I'm like, all right, go ahead, have fun. And she sits on the corner, a bottle of wine this week.
That's awesome. Talking trash is part of sports. NFL, I think, is one of the worst. NBA is pretty bad too, and they do the mic'd up stuff. Just curious, the worst thing or the nastiest thing somebody's ever said to you in the ring, like trash talk kind of thing.
Nothing. Nobody really ever trash talked. Hold on, No. Nobody really said anything. So it's a little weird. Like, most fighters, I'm going to say all fighters, but most fighters are nice guys anyway. And they're just trash talking to hype the fight.
Yeah.
To get people to want to watch the fight. Once you get inside the cage door, trash talking usually stops. Unless you're like the Diaz brothers and you're like, whatever, that kind of stuff. But that's not really trash talking. It's just them punking you. Trying to make you get engaged was to their benefit. I mean, it makes sense to their style of fighting. That totally makes sense, especially with the slap. And they're doing stuff just to make you angry, right? Which is going to make you walk into a left hand and make you walk into a right hand and go to sleep. That's kind of what they want. So no one really ever trash talked inside the cage. We trash talked a lot outside the cage. We had a lot of heat. There's a lot of heat between a lot of us building up these fights. Remember, when I was fighting in the beginning, the UFC had 8 fights a year. 8 fights a year. I think they're filming 8 fights in 6 weeks. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like now it's a totally different ballgame. There's so many more fights. You don't really need to trash talk as much. And the problem is the biggest name right now in our sport, Conor McGregor, is also the biggest trash talker. So a lot of guys are trying to get behind that game of trash talking, getting out there and being in that limelight because you get all these other things that happen. But then, is it really respectful of the sport? Is it really a deal in the sport? And, you got to tell guys, hey, watch your mouths. The guys that trash talk, they're going to trash talk. So, like, hey, watch your mouths in the cage. Remember, on live TV, can't swear. Keep it squared away. I'm allow a little bit, but if you guys get over the top, I'm gonna stop both of you and start taking points. So just stop with the trash talk. Just go out there and fight. Fans can't hear you trash talk anyway, right? Until after the fight's over, and then they do the replay of the sound. They're not gonna hear it live during the fight. So the trash talk you're doing might affect your opponent, but no one at home is hearing it, so no one's getting a giggle out of it. So unless it's really affecting your opponent, which it's not, he's a professional, you're a professional. Both of you guys have huge amount of money on the line. This is number 1 contendership fight on the line. Like, this is big time stuff. Trash talking is not going to help you right now. This guy's going to punch you in the face as much as you're going to punch him in the face.
Yeah.
Let's see who wins. Like, so keep it square. Most guys stop. But you'll get like a Khabib and Conor. Well, Khabib wasn't trash talking him, but he was like, say something now because he knew the end was coming. Say something now. What are you going to do now? What do you say something now? He's like, but Conor has a habit of pushing it over the top. He has a habit of making things go a little bit too far. But God, don't you love it? I mean, don't you ride on every single, like, I hate everything about Conor McGregor. I can't stand anything he does. He's a complete idiot. Did you see the interview he did last night? Did you see the thing he did? Did you see? You're like, you hate this guy, but you sure as hell watch a lot of his stuff.
Absolutely.
Like, well, yeah, I'm that guy. I'm that guy.
Yeah,
I'm that guy. I watch everything he does. Everything. And I am like, this is the dumbest stuff I've ever seen. Say it again. This is the stupidest stuff I've ever seen. Do it again. I can't believe this. When's this next interview? Oh, tomorrow 9 o'clock. I'm gonna be on it. Oh, I gotta stay up. It's in Europe. I gotta stay up or I have to wake up at 3 in the morning. I'm up at 2:45. I gotta wake up. I have a cup of coffee. Connor's about to do another interview. Like, it's like I just get sucked into it. Like, and this is what happens. That's why he's the biggest star. He wins what he says he's gonna win. He revenges losses quite a bit, and he knows how to sell a fight. Like, this is just it. Totally against my mannerism. Totally against my style. No reason to do it anymore. His game is completely changed, but man, do I love it. Man.
I'm on board with you for that. We're getting close to the end here. We do a between round segment. So I'm going to ask you a question. There's going to be one answer or another. You just pick that. 1 minute. Even though you said 45 seconds is all you really have between rounds. 1 minute. Yeah. All right, we ready to go?
As long as I get the full minute, I should be okay.
Okay. Burgers or chicken wings?
Chicken wings.
Tacos or anything else?
Ooh, it's a tough one. Is it Tuesday?
Yeah.
Tacos.
Wine or beer?
Wine.
Protein powder or a bowl of ice cream?
Mint chocolate chip ice cream.
Camping or a vacation destination?
Yes.
Which one?
Vacation destination.
Okay. Vegas or California?
Well, I live in Cali now, and I lived in Vegas for a long time. It's tough to California.
That's why I picked them. Reffing or fighting?
Reffing.
Reffing or judging?
Reffing.
Stand up or on the mat?
On the mat.
Wrestling or Muay Thai?
Wrestling.
Knockout or submission?
Submission.
A first round finish or a 3 or 5 round war?
5-round war.
Run or a bike ride?
Bike ride. Running sucks.
Hike or a bike ride?
Bike ride.
Who wins, Usman or Burns?
Oh, man, this one is tough. I've been stuck on the fence on this one for a long time, man. And this one is a tough one. I have a really hard time picking against Burns after the way he looked against Woodley, but Usman's a different kind of animal. He's a different human being, and he's young, and he's hungry, and he's in shape. I'm going with Carmu.
I think it's going to be one of those 5-round wars. Holloway or Volkanovski 2?
Holloway.
Aldo or Jan?
Aldo.
Cormier or Miocic 3?
Cormier.
Frank Trigg or any middleweight of your choosing in the UFC?
Currently? I mean, you got to pick the middleweight. I'm old as hell. Like, how am I going to, there's just like, so we were talking about this earlier. Is that the last question?
Yeah.
Okay, so we were talking about this earlier. Like, how would you guys do with the group now, whatever, blah, blah. And I hate to tell everybody in my era, I'm sorry, Randy. I'm sorry, Chuck and Tito. I apologize, Evan Tanner. I'm super sorry, Matt Hughes. We cannot compete with today's guys. We are middle of the road of today's group. That's the reality. The sport has grown so much since we were in our prime. The sport has advanced so much since we've been there. Do you know how many people have learned how to, that backstepping left hook that Liddell used to knock people out with? Because the reason why they learned it is because Chuck did it all the time. So they didn't have to spend the hours and hours developing a style like Chuck did for 10 years in the Muay Thai gym with John Halcom and trying to learn how to throw that punch. They started on TV one time, they started doing it. You started seeing these guys back in the day when Lyoto Machida and Anderson Silva started front kicking guys in the face. All of a sudden, everybody started doing it because they saw it on TV one time and it worked in a live fight, and I started training it. So the advancement of the sport has been tremendous since most of us got out of the game. We're middle of the road. We cannot compete with anybody. We're not going to be champs. We're not going to be the guys in our primes. Moving us, going back 15 years to our primes and putting them in today, we're still basically middle of the road. That's it. The game has improved so much. The science is so much different. The understanding of how much to spar, how not to spar, how much rest you need, how much protein you need, the supplement companies, the meal prep companies, the protein powders you get now, like the game has changed from the top to the bottom. Everything is different. Everything is different. And we can't compete. We just can't compete. And so if you're just like me versus any middleweight, it's gonna have to be like some amateur middleweight that's like 3-2. His amateur career and it's his first fight in the UFC in the middleweight division. That'd be the only guy I got a shot against. Everybody else, I'm like, I can't. Fuck off. I can't do it. I just can't. I don't have I'm too old. I'm just too old. Like, it just couldn't happen.
2 last things. A quote that you posted, incredible. Love it. Fear has 2 meanings. Forget everything and run, or face everything and rise. The choice is yours. Love that.
Thank you. Yeah, that was a big one in my family because challenges is how you get better. You got to challenge yourself. You got to push yourself in uncomfortable situations to get better. If it's not uncomfortable, if you've been comfortable for a long period of time, it's time to grow. You got to move on to something else.
Wake up with a purpose, right? And lastly, congratulations on the Hall of Fame and a late Happy Father's Day to you and your family.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that.
That's Frank Trigg, Twinkle Toes, last time I'll say it. And this is Hooks in MMA. Thank you so much, Frank.
Of course. Thank you.
Falling in and out of love, in and out of love with you. Falling in and out of love, in and out of love with you. Falling in and out of love, in and out of love with you. Falling in and out of love, yeah.